How's it going? My name is Anyssa. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. Woo! Guess what? We're switching it up this time because not only do we have Tagan, which, you know, we all know and love Tagan. We got my good friend Christian over here. So he's actually going to tell us some spooky, or not spooky, but spooky. like true crime type stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't even know what he's going to talk about. I mean, he told me the topics, but I don't know anything about them. So, and you don't know anything?
No, I don't know. I just showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just showed up.
Christian was like, you have to be here, Tagan. And Tagan was like, cool.
Yes, because I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on both of these topics. Just going in fresh, not knowing anything about them.
Yeah.
If you know anything about recent American history, these should sound familiar.
Yeah.
Just even by name.
Yeah, they sound familiar to me, but I couldn't tell you anything about them. Maybe once you start saying them, I'll be like, oh yeah, I kind of did hear about that. But honestly, I listened to so many different stories. They all start to blend together, and I'm terrible with names.
Yeah.
So, before we get into this, we have a story for you. It's a tiny story, but I just wanted to share because I have a really cool shirt on. I've talked about this in our first episode, but like one of my favorite movie series is Friday the 13th. And so I said that, and my Aunt Teresa got me this shirt, which, you know, cat Jason, I love it. But she came by our house. So Tagan and I live together, roommates, cool. It's been established.
And they were roommates.
So I was just getting ready to say that, and then
she has a fiance. Although my aunt just calls us a throuple a lot, and you know what? It feels that way. Like, you should see us grocery shopping.
I can see it.
Cody's technically kind of my cousin, so that's weird.
Blood related.
Connor,
Sorry.
Anyway, so my aunt, she came and brought the shirt over, and I was like, oh my god, that's awesome, cool. Well, I had like a chair in our living room because we were playing games on the TV, you know, and so I just threw it over the back of that because I was planning to show Tagan when she got home from work. So the shirt was kind of facing away from the front door.
Yeah, it was like facing towards our kitchen. And you have to, like, when I get home, we go through the living room. I go straight to, like, our back. You go through the kitchen, and then we have, like, a back room that leads to, like, our backyard.
The back rooms.
Yeah, basically. It's our laundry room. Very scary.
Piper did appear from the back room.
Yeah, so. That's another story. Because I let Bandit out straight away, and then I came back to, like, put my stuff away on the hook in our living room, and I just see that face on the chair, and it was like kind of like dark, so I was like, holy, I let out a scream because mind you, this was like after like the home invasion.
Oh yeah, this was after our possum incident.
Oh, okay.
The basement possum.
When she says home invasion, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Gotta watch last episode for that context.
But yeah, so I was a little paranoid.
Probably why I didn't have the context, because I haven't seen it.
Christian's a fake fan. I'm pretty sure Tatum, your sister, is our biggest fan.
Yeah, so. She is. She watches every episode.
To be fair, there's been 2 episods so far.
I've just been behind on watching a whole lot of stuff.
That's fine. It's fine. You know, it's fine. I'm sure no one else has watched it.
It's okay. Hi, Tatum.
She's like, yeah. You got shout outs from your favorite YouTubers. No, I heard you from upstairs. I heard you go like, ah, and then you just start dying laughing. Yeah,
because I felt so stupid because I was like, I just thought there was just somebody just sitting in the chair, and I just didn't notice, and I felt so embarrassed, and I was like, I just need to let Bandit back in. God dang it.
So,
that's
anyways. Funny. So that was the story we wanted to share because we started talking about it, and I was like, gotta wait for the podcast to say it because it's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. Otherwise, anything else current events happened for you guys? I mean, Christian, you're new, so you can tell whatever you want to tell. Talk about yourself. You don't have to. New Year's just happened. Today's the 1st of January.
Woohoo.
Filming this. So Happy New Year's. Woo.
Happy New Year.
We made it into the new year. But yeah, we went bowling last night. That was fun.
Yeah, they updated our bowling alley, and they have like the thing where you can like pick the songs. And my sister had gotten credits, and I was like, oh, I'll play something wicked, you know, because the movie just came out, so everybody's like cool with it now apparently. Even though it's been out for like 10 years or whatever, it's fine. Anyway, so I was like, oh, I'll put Popular on, so I picked Popular, and then it finally came on, and I was like, this sounds weird. It was in Spanish.
Yeah, because mind you, this is like a New Year's like cyberbullying.
Yeah, so it's popping.
So it's like pretty
popping.
loud, but you can just like barely hear. You're like, this isn't right. I don't know what they're saying. And then we just like all look at each other and we're like, is this in Spanish?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was, yeah. R.I.P.
Ah.
But yeah.
It didn't say it was in
Did you do anything
Spanish.
for New Year's, Christian?
No, I just stayed home and I did some research on our topics. That's basically
Fair.
it. That's all I did.
This is, yeah, you went, watch out, Tagan. He's bumping up to #1 guest.
Oh, no.
He did the research. He told me I don't have to do anything.
Oh,
To be fair, I mean, I don't mind doing things.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of that, shall we get into it?
Yes. So the topics that I wanted to talk about, or like I said, if you know anything about recent American history, these are the two most infamous law enforcement sieges of the previous few decades. They happened in like the early 90s. They are the Ruby Ridge Standoff and the Waco Siege. So I'll start talking about the Ruby Ridge standoff.
Okay.
And this was a siege that happened in Idaho, Boundary County, Idaho. And it involved a family known as the Weavers. And someone in particular is Randy Weaver, the father. So I'm going to give you some context on him first. So let's see. He was born in 1948, and he was one of 4 children. And his family, they moved around a lot, and they moved around a lot in different churches, because he and his family were like religious, like extremely religious. So they moved around and they went to different churches. And at the height of the Vietnam War, he dropped out of his college. He was going to like a community college, and he dropped out to enlist in the army to fight in Vietnam. And a lot of people say, like, there are a lot of sources that claim he was a Green Beret, but he wasn't a Green Beret, because that's been proved by his discharge papers from the army that he never was. So, and a lot of people say that. So there's a common misconception, but he never was. So while he was on leave, he met his future wife, Vicky, and he was discharged on October 8th, and then he married Vicky later that month in October. So let's see, I'm looking at my notes. He, again, like I said, was religious. So was his wife. They were both like deeply religious. So, Randy went back to college after getting married, but then dropped out again to work at a John Deere factory. So he was just working a normal like blue collar job. And his wife first worked as a secretary, but then she left her job to become the homemaker. Mm-hmm. So, then this is where things start to get interesting, because as they live their life as a normal married couple, him working his job and then she working as a homemaker, she read a book called The Late Great Planet Earth. And then they began to get a little more extreme in their religious beliefs. Vicky thought that the end of the world was coming, like the apocalypse is like imminent. So in order to follow her vision of her family surviving the coming apocalypse, they moved away from what they thought was like corrupt civilization. So they moved out from the city, and they moved to a 20-acre property in Idaho.
That sounds nice. That's where I want to live. Maybe
Yeah.
not Idaho.
And so here's what I found crazy doing the research on this. When they moved there in 1983, they paid $5,000 in cash for 20 acres.
Wow.
Which
Yeah.
2 years ago, I listed it would have been $13,000. So I just found that insane that they paid $5,000 for 20 acres of land.
Wow. Yeah.
So, but Randy decided to run for sheriff. Like even though they left what they thought was a corrupt society, they still were kind of part of civilization. So yeah, he decided to run for sheriff, and his slogan for running for sheriff was "Get out of jail free."
That's awesome.
That was his
slogan.
slogan.
That's a good slogan. I like that.
Also,
sounds familiar.
he was adamant about a decision for not paying taxes.
Oh.
So I'll tell you this.
Okay.
He
How American?
kind of harbored some anti-government positions, such as like not paying taxes. So they subscribed to ideas that fell under the category of their Christian identity, of their religious beliefs, but their beliefs were very, very different. So Vicky stated that her beliefs were set in adherence to the Old Covenant laws, which they involve several different things, and it means different things to like the Jewish community, to the Christian community, and also to the Muslim community, because the Muslim community also adheres to Abrahamic laws, something like that. Their views are kind of similar, but they're also kind of different. So yeah, just kind of different beliefs, very different than two beliefs that I believe in.
Right.
In 1989, Weaver met a gentleman named Kenneth Fadley at a meeting for a white supremacist group known as the Aryan Nations. Weaver was not a member of Aryan Nations. He was not a white supremacist or a neo-Nazi or anything like that. But he was at these meetings, and I think Fadley recorded that he was at these meetings. I think he said he saw him 4 times at these meetings. Fadley was an undercover ATF agent, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And he was investigating the Aryan Nations for just different reasons. And then he encountered Randy, and the two struck up a conversation. And Fadley asked Randy if he could manufacture and sell 2 short-barreled shotguns, to which Randy agreed. So he said then he was recorded on tape saying that he could supply him with 4 to 5 illegal shotguns in a week.
Oh my gosh, that's impressive.
So, and then in December of 1990, Weaver received felony weapons charges in connections with the 1989 transaction that took place. So, before I move into any of this, actually, wait, hold on, I'll run it back a little bit. So, after this, after the encounter with Fadley, he relocated from the rental house to the cabin that they built at Ruby Ridge after this whole incident. So after the charges were pressed against Randy, Vicky wrote a letter to the attorney, the U.S. attorney, addressing him as a servant of the Queen of Babylon. And in writing, and I quote, "The stink of your lawless government has reached heaven, the abode of Yahweh our Yahshua. And also, quote, whether we live or whether we die, we will not bow to your evil commandments." So.
Okay.
Such a fun letter.
Right.
Yeah.
So, before I get any further, I have to talk about something called an NFA, or the NFA, which is the National Firearms Act. And this has to do with the manufacture of certain weapons. So there's a guy I watch, his name is Wendigoon. He made a video talking about Ruby Ridge and Waco. And in the Ruby Ridge video, he talked about the NFA and how he summarized it best. Because the NFA came about in the 1930s, more after the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, because it was meant to target criminals who could easily conceal weapons to commit their crimes.
Right.
So, I want to ask you if, do you think, with this act that was passed to make weapons not so easily concealable, do you think that actually assisted in stopping crimes?
Oh, probably
Oh
not.
no, it just makes people find different ways to do it. It never
Be more
you know what I
sneaky
mean?
about
Yeah.
it.
It just makes the people who wouldn't have it be able to protect themselves in a sense.
The short answer is no.
Yeah.
It did not help, because any criminal, if they had the intent to commit a crime with a gun, they could go up with a full size weapon, because it's mostly targeting criminals who have a full length gun. And they go up to commit their crime. All they have to do, they can modify the gun and then commit the crime, because if you are caught with, if you're caught modifying your weapons and if you're arrested and brought up on the charge, the charges, let me look at my notes, were up to, let's see, it was up to 10 years in federal prison and a $10,000 fine.
Jesus.
So, like I said, if you are a criminal and you have your weapon, if you're intent on committing a crime that could cause you racking up multiple life sentences, you can modify your gun before you, like right before you commit the crime. 10 years and $10,000 isn't going to matter. Like I said, if you're racking up multiple life sentences, depending on what crime you're committing.
Right.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So might as well go and get in trouble. Might as well go all the way. You might as well have a reason.
Right.
It's awful, but it's true.
So like, yeah, I could have two weapons. Like I could have like two AK-47 rifles.
Hold on. Are you telling me you're a criminal?
No. Say for example, I have two.
He's just like right here.
Hypothetically.
Yeah. Hypothetically, say I have two AK model rifles. I have an AK-47 actual full-sized rifle and everything, and I have an AK-74, the shortened barrel, no stock, like submachine gun looking variant of an AK. They're both AKs, but the AK-47, the actual AK-47, is classified as like a rifle, right? Whereas the AK-74, because of its shortened barrel length and no stock, is classified as a pistol.
Huh.
So if I took the AK-74 and I put, like if I modified it to put, like have a stock or have a longer barrel, that is an illegal short-barreled rifle. That's 10 years. Or say I have just a normal handgun. If I wanted to put a foregrip on the handgun or a stock as a brace, that is also a short-barreled rifle, and that's also 10 years. So it's kind of crazy.
That's interesting. I never really like thought about it or I don't know. I mean, I kind of knew that stuff, but it's interesting to actually hear like the numbers and.
Yeah. So when Fadley, the undercover agent, asked Randy to make him like manufacture two shortened shotguns, he was committing a violation of the NFA by sawing off the barrels of the shotguns and making them sawed-off shotguns. So, yeah, that's how that started, and it's just only unravels from there. So, when they were living at Ruby Ridge, Vicky and Randy had 4 children. Sarah, who was 16, Samuel, who was 14, Rachel, who was 10, and they had a baby named Elisheba, who was 10 months at the time of the standoff. So starting with this, the standoff only took 11 days. Randy, he refused to surrender, and he like stayed at his home like during this whole time. And he also had a friend with him named Kevin Harris. He was also brought into this, and they all refused to leave the house when this whole thing started.
Dude, I feel like if I was trapped with my family for like 11 days, I would like kill somebody.
I can't really imagine being trapped with most people for 11 days.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I just don't like people.
Yeah.
Especially with the stress of like it being a standoff and there's cops outside.
Yeah.
Well, when they were living at Ruby Ridge on their cabin, they first began after Samuel was born, after their son was born, they began to sold all their stuff. They visited a local Amish community to learn how to live without electricity because they wanted to be like totally like off the grid. They wanted to be like away from society. So also another previous incident that occurred, Randy and his neighbor Terry Kinnison had a dispute over a land deal of $3,000. And Kinnison lost the deal in the ensuing lawsuit and was ordered to pay Weaver an additional $2,100 in court costs and damages. So, being upset at this, Kinnison wrote a letter to the FBI, the Secret Service, and to the county sheriff in which he alleged that Weaver had threatened to kill Pope John Paul II, then President Ronald Reagan, and the Idaho governor.
Okay.
That sounds like a smart idea. Yeah,
Just be like, oh, you didn't give me what I wanted. Hey, this guy trying to threaten to kill the Pope. Like, you should do something about that.
yeah.
Like, that would work.
So later the next year in 1985, the FBI and the Secret Service then launched an investigation into those allegations.
Oh, God, they actually, followed up?
Yeah, because if you make a threat against the president,
I guess,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can't
State
just
governor,
make a threat against the president,
you're
right?
you're gonna get, like, something's gonna happen at least.
Yeah.
So they opened up an investigation about the threats made against Reagan, the Pope, and the Idaho governor. But then in February, they were both interviewed by 2 FBI agents, 2 Secret Service agents, and then the county sheriff and his investigator. The Secret Service had been told that Weaver was a member of Aryan Nations, even though he wasn't, and that he also had a large cache of weapons on his residence. And Randy vehemently denied all of these allegations, and the government filed no charges.
Bro, okay.
So on 3 of 4 occasions, here on my notes I also listed, it says that he had attended those meetings where there was a compound for government resistors as well as white supremacists and separatists, even though Fadley says that he saw him 4 times. Kind of crazy that he said all this started, he just like, this guy, his neighbor, lost the court case against him, and then he just says like, hey, yeah, he's gonna kill the president, he's gonna kill the Pope.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He said,
And
screw you.
this starts this whole other investigation and the whole bunch of different false information about him.
So it all started because he's being a petty ass bitch.
Basically, yeah. So the investigation also noted that Weaver associated with a gentleman known as Frank Cumnick, who was an associate with the members of the Aryan Nations. And Randy told the investigators that neither he nor Cumnick were actually members. He, again, denied that he was a member of this white supremacist group. But that Cumnick was associated with another group called the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, which is another group that's just it's a far right survivalist, like, militia group. Yeah, I didn't mean to click on that, but it took me to another page. So in February, Randy and Vicky filed an affidavit with the county courthouse alleging that their personal enemies were plotting to provoke the FBI into attacking and killing the whole family. Because of, again, the bogus threats against everybody. So, in May, Randy sent President Reagan a letter claiming that their enemies may have sent a letter threatening him under a forged signature. But no evidence of any such a letter had ever come about. So. Yeah, so it's also part of the story, again, how things are just kind of just unraveling. So after going back to the violation of the NFA, in 1989, the ATF claimed Weaver sold their informant the 2 sawed-off shotguns, which he did, with the overall length of the guns shorter than the limit set by the federal law. So in November of 1989, Weaver accused the ATF informant of being a spy for the police, and then he later wrote that he had been warned by a gentleman named Rico, who was the informant's handler. The informant's handler ordered him to have no further contact with Weaver. So then the FBI informant, who was Rico was the FBI informant, then outed the ATF informant to the Aryan Nations.
Oh, that's dangerous.
So then in 1990, the handler of the informant, attempted to use the sawed-off shotgun charge as leverage to get Weaver to act as an informant into an investigation to the Aryan Nations. Randy then told him where he could stick that offer because he was not going
Right.
to snitch. He wasn't going to snitch out the Aryan nations to the FBI or the ATF. So then the ATF filed their charges against him. And they also alleged that he was a bank robber with criminal convictions, even though he had no criminal record at this time. So that was
Just kind of throwing in everything they could, right?
Yeah.
Just being like,
They're
oh
just
yeah,
trying to-
actually he also does this
Yeah.
and this.
Just throwing everything at him to see what sticks.
Anything to see, like, oh, maybe I'm just taking a guess, maybe they'll come up with evidence on that. I
Yeah.
don't know.
so.
Be like, we'll worry about it later.
Yeah. So a grand jury then indicted Weaver in December of 1990 for making, possessing, but not selling the illegal weapons. So, but they also thought it would be too dangerous for agents to arrest Weaver on his property. So here's a crazy thing. They in 1991, agents they posed as broke down motorists just outside of his property.
Oh.
So as Vicky and Randy went to go check on them to see if they needed help, once Randy was bent over to check and see what was wrong, that's when the agents drew their guns and said you're under arrest.
That's
Oh.
crazy.
So they held him
Honestly,
under
that's
arrest.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was told of the charges. He was then released on bail, and that his trial would begin February 19th in 1991. So on January 22nd, the judge in the case appointed Randy his legal representative, and then the same day he called the probation officer and told him that he had been instructed to contact. He had been told to contact him on the date. So the case file, he didn't have it at the time, and he asked Weaver to leave his contact information and said he would contact him when he would receive the paperwork. And according to the probation officer, Weaver did not give him a telephone number because he didn't have a telephone.
No,
They
off the
were
grid.
they were off the grid. So they had to communicate by written letters. So
Oh, they wrote little love letters to each other.
So he was sent letters January 19th, the 31st, and then February 5th asking Weaver to contact him to work on his defense within the court system. On February 5th, the court date was changed from the 19th of February to the 20th to give participants more travel time following a federal holiday. So the county clerk sent the parties a letter informing them of the date change, but the notice was not sent directly to Weaver, only to Hoffmeister, which is his legal representative. So on February 7th, the probation officer sent Weaver a letter indicating that he had the case file, and then they needed to talk it over. So this letter had a major error stating that the trial date was March 20th,
Oh,
not February
crap.
20th.
That's wow. Okay.
So on February 8th, Hoffmeister again attempted to contact Weaver by letter, informing him that the trial was to begin in February 20th,
February.
and that Weaver needed to contact him right now, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But he also made several calls to many individuals who knew Randy, asking him to have him call him. But that couldn't happen because, again, he had no phone. So they were unable to reach Randy before the scheduled date. So when he didn't appear in court on February 20th, a bench warrant was then issued for his failure to appear. So then the U.S. Marshals agreed to they agreed to put off executing the bench warrant because they both several different groups like the U.S. Marshals and Randy's attorney both were informed of the error on the court documents, stating that even though his trial was for the 20th and he received documents stating that it was for the next month, they were both informed of this. So the judge refused to withdraw the bench warrant, but again, the marshals agreed to put off executing that warrant
Right.
to see if Randy would show up in court.
Yeah.
So, and he said that if he were to show up March 20th, the DOJ then claimed that all of the indications that the warrant would have been dropped. But instead, the attorney's office called a grand jury on March 14th.
Oh.
And the attorney's office did not inform the grand jury of the letter, and the grand jury then issued an indictment for failure to appear.
So they told him the wrong date, and they're like, we'll wait till we get the wrong date, because, we'll give him a chance. And then they just did a different date.
So.
That's fucked up.
What? Motorcycle. Someone has a small pee-pee.
Vroom, vroom.
So now, because Randy failed to appear in court, and then the grand jury has indicted him, so he's now considered a fugitive from justice because he couldn't appear in court, or he didn't appear in court. So then Randy decided just to barricade himself in his home, and he just refused to leave.
Fun.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. And he just had an overall distrust of the government, and especially based on his previous arrest. That's I could kind of see where a distrust could come from.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who serve in the military who do get resentful towards the government as well.
Exactly.
That's true.
Especially, I could also see that, especially after Vietnam. I could also see that.
Yeah.
U.S. Marshals made a series of attempts to get him to surrender peacefully, but again, he refused to leave. He just wasn't coming out. So the Marshals then later in February, they developed a threat profile on Randy himself, and they're starting to get things get the ball rolling to see if they can find ways to get him to come out and leave so he could be arrested for not appearing. And after the psychological profile was completed on him, a later memo was circulating within the Justice Department, which stated the assumptions of federal and some state and local law enforcement personnel about Weaver, that he was a Green Beret and that he would shoot on sight anyone that attempted to arrest him, that he had collected certain types of arms, that he had, quote, booby-trapped and tunneled his property, exaggerated the threat he posed.
Oh.
So that memo stated that a lot of rumors about his property, his arms cache, about his previous military service was all exaggerated.
Right. Man.
So
Hammered on after another.
Right. So now we're moving on to the actual siege itself. The actual siege started, the first day of this whole incident started October 21st in 1992. So 6 marshals were sent to scout out the surrounding perimeter of his property. They were trying to find suitable places away from the cabin to arrest Randy. So the marshals were dressed in military camouflage, night vision goggles, and M16s.
Jesus.
They came ready to rock.
Yeah. No chances.
So three officers formed a reconnaissance team, and then 3 other officers formed an observation post north of the cabin. So, and here's where things kind of get crazy. So one of the officers decided to throw 2 rocks at the Weaver's cabin to test the reactions of his dog. Just to see what happens.
Right.
So the dog, his name was Stryker, by the way. The dog began to follow the agents. Randy, their friend Kevin Harris, and Sammy, their 14-year-old son, decided to follow Stryker into the woods off the trail because they thought that he was following the trail of a game animal, because they had just run out of meat, so they thought that he was on the trail of something, so they decided to follow him.
Yeah.
Kevin and Sam followed Stryker down the main path where Randy followed a different trail, because either there are conflicting reports that either the trail was just too rough, or just Randy was just getting too old to run after the trail that they were on, so he took a different trail.
Okay.
So then the recon team retreated through the woods in radio contact with the operations team, but they also then later took up their defensive positions around the cabin. So the operations team and the Weavers claimed the dog was alerted to the recon team in the woods after neighbors at the foot of the mountain started their pickup truck. So then when the recon team retreated through the woods, there's a Y junction in the trails 500 yards west of the cabin that's just out of sight of the cabin. So Sam and Kevin followed Stryker on foot, while Randy, also on foot, took the separate trail. Vicky, Sarah, Rachel, and their baby, they remained at the cabin. They didn't leave. So when Randy then encountered the marshals at the Y junction, one of the officers yelled, back off, U.S. Marshal.
Right.
And then that caused Randy to stop. So Randy then said, fuck you, and then turned back around and ran back up to the cabin.
No thanks.
Sam and then Stryker then came out of the woods about a minute later on the trail that they were on, to when the marshals' positions were then revealed by Stryker. One of the marshals then shot the dog dead, on the spot.
We hate them. They killed a dog.
So upon seeing this, Sammy, thinking that just some random guy had shot his dog, just some random person out in the woods, he is reported to have said to the marshal, his exact quote says, "You killed my dog, you son of a bitch." And then he shot in the direction of where the shots came from.
Yeah.
I would too.
Valid.
I would too.
He had no idea that it was a U.S. Marshal that he was shooting at or that had shot his dog.
Right.
So then shots were then returned to Sammy and then later Kevin, who had joined him. So then they both took cover in the ensuing gunfight. So Harris, after he took cover behind a tree stump, and as he returned fire, one of the shots that came from his gun hit U.S. Marshal William Deegan square in the chest, and he was dead. So the both of them decided to retreat back to the cabin, running back up the hill, to which Sammy Weaver was then shot in the back by another U.S. Marshal, and he was killed instantly.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. You kill someone's dog. What do you expect? I mean, I get it. There was recently were there and all that, but
I don't know. I feel like, I guess they probably thought they knew because they were like, U.S. Marshal. So maybe they thought they knew that they were there. But if someone literally shoots at me first because you shot my dog, which assumably is right there in front of me because I'm following him, that means you shot my dog and you're shooting towards my direction. So in his brain, it's like, okay, I'm going to shoot back.
Just saying they're not entirely wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Shoot my dog, I'm shooting back.
So Harris, when he got back to the cabin, and then he reported to Randy and Vicky what had happened, that they had encountered two people in the woods, shot their dog, shot back, and then as they were trying to run away, he then told them that Sammy had been killed by these two random strangers. Mm-hmm. The whole family was beside themselves, as you could probably imagine.
Yeah, that's awful.
So after the firefight, two of the other officers, or the marshals, went to a neighbor's house to call for assistance. And the other three marshals stayed with the body of Deegan, the marshal who was killed. Then Randy and Vicky later went to the Y junction to retrieve Sam's body. And then after they retrieved the body and made their way back up to their cabin, they put their body in a shed, or what they call as a guest cabin, near the main one. Mm-hmm. So after the gunfight on August 21st, the marshals requested support from Idaho law enforcement. He also alerted the FBI, notifying that a marshal had been killed. Mm-hmm. So the Idaho State Police arrived on the scene. The Idaho National Guard also arrived. And they used National Guard APCs, armored personnel carriers, the armored like the armored police trucks kind of. FBI headquarters in DC, they responded by sending the hostage rescue team to Idaho to also assist in this. So yeah, the standoff was an 11-day, like 10 or 11-day standoff between the FBI, ATF, the Marshals, the hostage rescue team, National Guard, Idaho State Police, like everybody.
Jeez.
Wow.
So I also have to mention the rules of engagement that they used for like this standoff.
Yeah.
And they are as follows. So if any adult in the area around the cabin is observed with a weapon, after the surrender announcement has been made, deadly force could and should be used to neutralize the individual. If any adult male is observed with a weapon prior to the announcement, deadly force can and should be employed if the shot could be taken without endangering any children. Mm-hmm. If compromised by any dog, the dog can be taken out. And any subjects other than Randy Weaver, Vicky Weaver, Kevin Harris presenting threat of death or grievous bodily harm, FBI rules of deadly force apply. Deadly force can be utilized to prevent the death or grievous bodily injury to oneself or to that of another. So, like, when these rules were first put in place, it was just adult, not adult male.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But then they updated it to adult male to exclude Vicky Weaver after consultation because Vicky was not seen at the site of the marshal killing of the marshal that was shot. So they decided just to switch it out. Instead of saying any adult, it's just an adult male.
Yep.
So specifically just Randy and Kevin. Before the negotiators arrived to the cabin to try to defuse the situation, there was an FBI sniper who was part of the hostage rescue team. His name was Lon Horiuchi. So remember that name because it's going to be important. He was positioned about 200 yards north and above the Weaver cabin. Oh. He was a sniper. So okay. he was able to see down below to that whole property. So the next morning, Randy went out to that guest cabin to check on Sam's body to make sure like no animals or insects or anything had gotten to him in the night.
Right.
And just as he was getting ready to open the door to that guest cabin to go in and check, a shot rang out.
Oh.
And Lon Horiuchi tried to, he said that he tried to put the crosshairs on Randy's spine, but that Randy moved at like the last possible second. And the shot went into his back and the bullet exited his right armpit.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
Weaver's on the ground. So Kevin and his oldest daughter, Sarah, both ran outside to see what happened because they heard the gunshot. And Sarah reports that she positioned herself in between her father and where she thought the gunshot rang out because she thought that the sniper wasn't going to just shoot a young girl.
Right.
Yeah.
So she put herself in between him and the sniper. So as they pick him up and the three of them are running back to the cabin, Vicky opens the door to let them in.
Uh-huh.
A second shot rings out. Horiuchi he took another shot at him. The bullet goes through Kevin Harris's chest, passes through the door, through the head of Vicky.
Oh, you dumb hoe.
As she is holding their baby.
Dude.
Oh my God.
So they immediately, like they shut the door and everybody immediately hits the ground. Yeah. When they see Vicky hit the ground, they think that she just took cover. They had no idea that she had also been shot.
Oh my God, yeah.
So when things kind of start to settle down, at least as settled as they could get, and everybody's like trying to stand up, they notice that Vicky's not standing up. Well, then they hear a baby crying, so Randy goes to move Vicky's body off the baby so the baby doesn't suffocate. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to calm the baby down. The family is again beside themselves because Vicky had just been shot.
Yep.
And she's down on the floor.
Yep.
And Kevin is now bleeding out because he was just shot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I get he wanted to get the shot, but like literally, like if there's somebody else that's like, oh yeah, woman and child, don't shoot.
Yeah,
them.
especially because, and it was written like, you know,
in the thing, like,
yeah,
hey, don't get the children,
the men.
And
it's like I feel like they need to practice some patience, I guess, on getting that moment. I don't know. Maybe they were. I mean, I can imagine the adrenaline of first hitting your target, but like kind of not hitting.
But
your
you
target,
like miss,
and then being like, oh, I have another opportunity, and then it's like you probably are gonna take it, right?
Yeah.
In the moment, but also, I mean, that's why training is important. Mm-hmm. That's why I couldn't do that job.
Yeah. Well, the DOJ, they after this whole thing, like this whole siege and everything ended and the trials were going on, the report said that the lack of a request for surrender before Horiuchi shot a second time, they said that was like inexcusable because Harris and the Weavers were running for cover at the time and they didn't pose a threat.
Right.
Like they weren't trying to like shoot back at where they shot.
No,
where the
they
shot
probably
came
weren't
from.
even armed.
Yeah, they were just trying to run back to the house for cover. So there should have been no reason why he shot
again.
a second time.
Yeah.
And again, also shooting towards the house when he had no idea who was standing behind the door.
Mm-hmm. It could have been like, I don't know, what was all the ages?
Any of the other kids?
Yeah, any other kids, you know?
14 and I don't remember.
The chillins.
Like 16, 14, like 10 and 10 months.
I think that sounds
could have been the 10-year-old that was opening the door, see what was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, after this whole situation,
I think it didn't hit the 10-month-old baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got really lucky.
After this whole situation ended, or this part of the situation ended, they reevaluated like what's been going on based on the information they had been receiving from the marshals. They started to negotiate. They had the thought of like, oh wait, maybe we have to talk to him first before we start shooting.
Like, yeah, we started killing like a third of his family. Maybe we should talk to him now.
I felt like there was something we should have done first.
Yeah, they missed a step. They were supposed to talk to him first. So, they tried to talk to him like with a megaphone, but they were afraid of being shot. So instead of standing out and facing the cabin, they had to like face out and talk the opposite direction. So it was hard for him to understand what was going on.
Right.
So yeah, there was no response from the cabin, as could be imagined.
Just send a letter, just like fold it up like a paper airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw it.
Nowadays, you just send a drone in there with like a phone and you just be like, hey, talk to us.
I mean,
Right.
they could send a dog, but you might shoot it. I don't know.
Yeah. One of the negotiators, like as they start with their like trying to diffuse the situation through normal conversation, they stated by like asking like just starting like normal conversation. They just asked like, "Hey, what did Vicky have for breakfast? Anything good?"
Dude, too soon.
Again,
Wow,
to
what
the
a punch.
Like this was just after, like this was the day after she had just been killed. So to the family, as you can imagine, this was like the like most offensive thing ever.
insane.
So,
But
it was
they
the
had
day
no-
after.
Yeah, this
so
was
it's
the
like,
day after.
oh, what did Vicky have for breakfast like that morning?
So they
Yeah,
didn't
that morning.
know?
Yeah, they had no idea that she had been killed. So they were just asking like a question, like, "Hey,
Yeah, they were trying
did
to
she
be
have,
friendly, you know?
Yeah, did she have anything for breakfast? Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yeah, like if
That's rough.
yeah, they
I'd
had
be so mad. I'd be like, "Are you serious right now?" Because I would assume they knew they killed her or hit her to some degree.
yeah, they had
So
no idea.
them asking that, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they were thinking like, what did Vicky have for breakfast? So I don't know, a bullet. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Jesus.
She hasn't really eaten anything today. I don't know why.
Yeah. So again, they just trying to establish communications with them, like reliable communications, and Randy didn't have a phone, like a telephone at the time, because again, off the grid. Mm-hmm. So they decided to send up like one of the like the bomb defusal like robots, like those little rovers. They sent one up that has a phone attached to it.
Oh, there you go. See, that's where I was getting at with the drone.
Yeah. They had a phone attached to it. But again, this is another like ridiculous moment of this, and this was something I found kind of funny when I first heard about it. They sent this drone up to the cabin, like this little rover. When Randy receives it, there's a telephone with a 12-gauge shotgun pointed at the receiver. The thing he's supposed to put his face up to, there's a shotgun pointed at it.
Oh.
So, you know, like, have you seen, I don't know if you've seen it, but like the mouse traps from like the 1800s where it's like the little wooden platform, a piece of cheese, and a single action revolver pointed at it. That's essentially what they tried to get him with. Was a rover with a shotgun.
So they literally tried to like Home Alone booby trap him.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, essentially.
And this took place in the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody watched like
they should have just
did Home
actually
Alone
sent
come out in the 90s? Did somebody just watch that and be like, dude, I saw this movie last night. I got a fucking idea.
You're like, big picture idea here.
So,
wow.
yeah, that's again another like ridiculous thing
Imagine
that is so funny.
got him. Imagine being like, yep, we did it, guys. We did it, boys. We got him with the shotgun phone.
Yeah.
So that is insane.
As the standoff is going on, and Kevin is like bleeding out on the floor, like, and he asks Randy to just end it, to have to kill him, because like he's in tremendous pain, he's bleeding out, and he can't take anymore.
Yep.
Randy refuses. He says that, hey, if you want to die, you're gonna have to do it. I'm not gonna kill you.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this whole standoff is resolved by a civilian negotiator, not an FBI negotiator, not ATF, no one involved with the government, but a civilian negotiator. His name was Bo Gritz, who he was a Green Beret. And this is somebody that that Randy would like respect and listen to. So he agreed to try to speak to Randy and then dissolve the situation, or diffuse it. I mean, so first he like was given a megaphone to try to speak to him, but he thought, well, then this is stupid. I'm not gonna do it. So he gives them the megaphone back and then walks up to the cabin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when he entered the cabin, after realizing how stupid it was trying to communicate with a megaphone, he walked up, went to go talk to Randy in person in the cabin, and he told Randy, he said, hey, I've been given a deadline. You guys have to come out. Kevin needs to come out. He's bleeding out on the floor. He's going to die here unless he doesn't get medical care. And again, he was given a deadline. He tells them of this deadline. He says, if you're not out by then, like if you haven't surrendered, they're going to come in like full force and take you out. So, and Kevin he agrees to walk out and surrender so he can get his medical care. So he's taken out by stretcher and he's flown to a nearby hospital. And the next day, Randy and his other three children, they surrender, to which Randy is then arrested, and Harris, who is at the hospital, is arrested there. So his other surviving children, they are released into custody of other relatives, whereas the federal officials, they consider charging Sarah, who was 16 at the time, charging her as an adult. Like
what? For what?
They really just are like, no, you ain't getting away with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, how dare you go try help your father?
That's awful, yeah.
You criminal.
So in the ensuing trials, Randy and Kevin, they were charged with a variety of different offenses. And then in mid-June, Randy's defense attorney rested his case without calling any witnesses for the defense. So instead, he sought to convince the jury through cross-examination, which aimed at discrediting the government's evidence and witnesses. Mm-hmm. So after as the trial goes on, he notes that the ATF informant who asked him to make the short-barreled shotguns, that's entrapment, because you can't ask a criminal to commit the crime and then, he wasn't a criminal. You can't ask someone to commit the crime and then arrest him for committing the crime you asked him to commit.
Right.
So that was entrapment. So he got that thrown out.
Well, that's good.
So there were other things he was able to get thrown out during the trial, but that's the only one that I remember doing through all the research
Yeah.
is that he was, because that was entrapment is what
Yeah.
ultimately he had participated in. So in July, Randy was acquitted on all charges except the initial charge of failure to appear.
Oh,
That's the only
fucking God.
that's the only one that they got him on.
And that that's so stupid too.
So, well, he may say it was failure to appear and violating his bail conditions. So
Yeah.
he was sentenced to 18 months and fined $10,000. So credited with time served and with good behavior, he served less than 16 months. Kevin was defended by his attorney and was acquitted of all charges. And exactly 5 years after the indictment, he was indicted for he was indicted for first-degree murder of William Deegan. But that charge was dismissed in early October on the grounds of double jeopardy. Because he had been acquitted of the same charge in the federal criminal trial in 93. So then they opened up an investigation into the law enforcement officials involved in the situation. Especially an investigation into Lon Horiuchi. He was indicted for manslaughter on state charges just before the statute of limitations expired.
Good.
So a special prosecutor was appointed to conduct the case, but in 98, the trial was removed to federal court because Horiuchi had been acting in the line of duty as a federal law enforcement officer, and the judge had quickly dismissed the case on grounds of sovereign immunity.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like he should have gotten some consequences.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So Randy and then his daughters, they filed wrongful death suits for $200 million related to the killing of Vicky and Sam. In an out-of-court settlement in 95, the federal government awarded Randy $100,000, but then it also awarded $1 million to each of his three surviving children. The government didn't admit to any wrongdoing throughout this entire incident,
Bro.
as one could imagine, in relating to the deaths of Sam and Vicky. Harris, he pressed civil suits for damages, and the federal officials vowed that they would never pay someone who killed a federal marshal. But then in September of 2000, he was awarded $380,000 settlement by the government. So Randy, later on, Randy and Sarah wrote The Federal Siege at Ruby Ridge. It was a book going over their point of view of the events of the standoff. The surviving family then moved to Montana, where later on Sarah and the other two daughters would later be employed there. They would be working there. In 2012, Sarah became a born-again Christian, so she relaxed on some of her more extreme beliefs of her family, and she started actually believing. And she ultimately forgave the federal agents who killed her mother and her brother.
Oh, wow.
That's big.
I could never.
But Randy grew increasingly bitter, and he later in life, close to around the end of his life, he kind of renounced his faith, even if it was an extreme point of view of faith. He kind of renounced it and claimed to be an atheist, and that he said nothing matters. And I think it was because I think he also made an appearance at the Waco standoff, and everybody was concerned that he would be killed by the federal agents that were there. And he says, they can go ahead and kill me because I don't care. I just want to see what happens. I don't know. I don't believe in anything anymore. And Randy, he died May 11th, 2022.
Oh, wow.
Dang.
So
that's recent. not recent. I guess 2025 now.
Wow,
but
it's
like
2025.
3 years ago almost.
Wow.
So this actually had an impact in a pretty major domestic terrorist event. I'm sure the name Timothy McVeigh probably rings a bell.
vaguely.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
The Oklahoma City
Bad
bomber.
names.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He, as well as Terry Nichols, claimed desire for revenge against the government for what happened at both Ruby Ridge, and Waco.
Okay, I do remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what motivated them to ultimately perpetrate the OKC bombing.
Yeah.
So that's an abridged version of the history of the Ruby Ridge
Wow.
standoff.
The Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge.
That's crazy. No, I kind of heard. I think there's a lot of references to it in like different shows and stuff like that you watch, but I've never really heard the stories. It's one of those things that everyone just kind of assumes you know about it, and it's like, okay, I don't know because no one's actually told me. They just reference it. But wow, yeah, that's kind of a crazy deal.
That was absolutely crazy how they fumbled the bag so hard.
Yeah,
again and
they
again.
did. I couldn't imagine that Randy would think that the government would show up, kill his wife and his son over being asked to make two short shotgun,
Right. That's
Yeah.
insane.
two shortened shotguns.
And it was like the undercover guy
Yeah.
who was like, "Hey, can you make these for me?" And he was like, "Sure."
Like, yeah, you know. Wow, that's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that was a fumble. So
Well, I know you have another story, but since this one's been a little while, I think we're gonna make this a two-parter. So we're gonna go ahead and record this, but it's gonna be a second episode for the tubes.
sounds good.
So
Yeah, 'cause I have to tell you about this one too, because
yeah, no, I'm excited to hear it. I'm like, look at the time. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, so thanks for watching that. If you've made it this far, if you're interested in the Waco, what is it called?
the Waco siege.
Waco siege. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Stay tuned for the next part. I'm gonna try to put it up like as soon as I can after this. But yeah, thanks for
Just
watching.
make them wait a week.
No, wait.
Yeah, because I'm totally on a schedule because that's how I work.
For sure.